Good afternoon. Good to see everybody here. I certainly am listening to the people. I got a steady beat out there today, so it gives me a little rhythm to the press conference. It's been a good chunk of the day hearing from folks. We've got over 100,000 emails, obviously some for, some against. It's spending some time. I don't get to read them all personally myself with that many, but I've been a fair amount of time reading through those emails, hearing from contacts from people all across the state of Wisconsin. I'm here today working. I appreciate the fact that the State Assembly is here in the Capitol debating the budget repair bill. I appreciate the fact that Senate Republicans are in the Capitol preparing to debate a number of measures and hoping to be able to debate the budget repair bill. It is my hope that later today we might get some updates from the 14 state senators who are not in the Capitol today, not doing their job, and that they might give us some sort of time frame as to when they plan on coming back to do their job. I want to talk about a couple things in the budget repair bill, just a couple new things and then a couple things to clarify. First off, I think it's important to talk about the impact of this budget repair bill as it relates to the budget I'll introduce next week on March 1st. Clearly, I've said all along, and I think you'll see very vividly today, that this measure passing is critical to balancing the next state budget. And I'm going to give you some examples. We've announced today, you received copies of this, that this budget will provide local governments, this budget repair bill, in anticipation of the budget, will provide local governments with nearly $1.5 billion of savings. $1.44 billion to be exact. Divide that out, that's for schools, just under $1 billion worth of savings, $976 million. For our municipalities, it's $196 million. For our counties, it's $128 million. For our technical school systems, that's $116 million. And for the other special districts throughout the state, it's $31 million. That's $1 billion and a half dollars worth of savings come from the measures included in this budget repair bill. That's real budget savings. One thing I want to make abundantly clear today is those savings, the savings for local governments, will exceed the reductions in state aid that I will include in my budget presented to the members of the state legislature next week. Let me repeat that. The savings that are key, the savings that come only when we pass this budget repair bill, the local governments will exceed the reductions in state aid that will be included in our budget bill for the next biennium next week. That's important because if you look across the country, governors all across the United States are talking about cutting billions of dollars from schools, local governments, from other jurisdictions. Unlike, for example, in New York and California, where ironically there are Democrat governors making those cuts without giving schools and other governments the tools they need to balance them. What we're doing in this budget repair bill in anticipation of our budget is giving those local governments the tools they're going to need to balance their local budgets with the reality that we're going to see less in terms of state aid. In total, we have just over 1.7, almost $1.75 billion worth of savings in this budget repair bill. It's the $300 million of savings in the next biennium we get from the changes that we propose in this bill for state employees, as well as the $1.44 billion worth of savings for local government. That's important. And for us to lock in that savings, to have that done in anticipation of the budget bill, we need one thing, and we need one thing in particular, and that is for those 14 state senators to come back to Wisconsin to debate this bill, to participate in democracy and allow us to move forward in the fact that they should be doing the job that they were ultimately elected to do. Secondly, this bill is about jobs. For us, the alternative is if we do not see this bill pass, we've already mentioned that for this year alone, for fiscal year 2011 that ends June 30th, the total number of jobs that we equated would be the equivalent of the $30 million we saved by starting our wage and benefit reforms as of April 1st, is the equivalent of 1,500 jobs. As I mentioned the other morning on one of the local TV shows here in town, if we're not able to pass the bill by the end of the week, for us that ultimately means at-risk notices will have to go out, and ultimately that would affect 1,500 individuals. On top of that, if we don't achieve the savings that are generating this budget repair bill for debt restructuring by the end of the week, we lose out on about $165 million savings. And for us, we'd have to go to the next step and determine whether or not that indeed means that there'd have to be additional at-risk notices put out in terms of additional layoffs to make up those savings as well. So clearly that's a problem. Even more so looking ahead to the future, because again, this budget repair bill and the savings achieved through it really set us up for what's going to happen in the next budget. The equivalent of savings we need at the state and the local level is 5,000 to 6,000 layoffs of state employees. An additional 5,000 to 6,000 local government employees would have to be laid off. That's 10,000 to 12,000 state and local government employees, government workers all across the state of Wisconsin. Now, I have great respect for our workers, both in the government and outside of government. And I think at a time while our 7.5% unemployment rate is still better than the national average, we can't afford to have anybody laid off. Adding to those numbers is unacceptable. But unfortunately, we'll have little or no other choice if those Senate Democrats continue to hold out from allowing the Senate to move forward on a vote on this measure. So again, dire consequences, but a way to get out of those dire consequences is for those 14 members, or at least some of those 14 members of the state Senate, to decide it's not worth holding out, staying out of state, to jeopardize the jobs of state and local workers. Third, and I just talked about, but workers, I want to make this clear because this doesn't get a lot of coverage. We are asking all of our workers at the state level, we're asking workers at the state level and at the local level to make a sacrifice. All of us who are involved in this decision-making process, myself, my staff, my cabinet, the legislature, are going to make that same commitment in terms of making additional payments for pension and health care contributions. When I talk to people across the state who don't work in government, they think those are modest requests. They're modest requests for anybody outside of government. We understand, though, that to do this, there has to be some shared sacrifice. In return, however, what we're giving our workers to be mindful of not only job protection, because our bill is not filled with furloughs, it's not filled with massive layoffs. Our bill protects our workers in the state and at the local level. But it also gives them an option whether or not they want to participate in their union, and ultimately, no longer by law mandates that their union dues have to be deducted from their paycheck. For some of our workers in the state, that's going to be up to $1,000 that no longer is automatically forcibly taken out of their paycheck. Think about that. That's $1,000. In some households, that might be close to $2,000, depending on where those individuals work and if both in that household work there. That's real money. That's money that those households can use to help offset that pension contribution and the health care contribution. That's real money that helps the bottom line. And we're giving those employees the right to choose when it comes to having that money taken out of their paycheck, and ultimately they have the right to choose when it comes to being a part of the union. That's important because I think that's a benefit for our workers. Finally, not just about the budget, now and into the future. It's not just about jobs or workers. This is ultimately about the future of our state. See, it's bigger than just this budget adjustment bill. It's bigger than just the next biennial budget. For year after year after year, we've seen in this state, like so many other states across the country, politicians have made promises and failed to deliver on them. They push the tough decisions off to the future. The future is now. And we want to make a commitment to the future to ensure that not only for ourselves, but more importantly for our children, they're not faced with the kind of dire consequences we face with this budget in the years in the future. We've got to make sure that we deal with the problem now, not with a short-term fix. The reason we're in this problem, the reason we face a $3.6 billion deficit is because politicians in the past have deferred the tough decision, and now it's time for us to stand up and do what I think our children will appreciate, and that is make the tough decisions. So, again, I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate the people who are here. Certainly appreciate those, even those protesters who are here from Wisconsin. I welcome those in from other states, as long as they're here to inform the debate, to add to the debate, to inform it in a positive way in terms of offering opinions pro or con. But we certainly don't want individuals from outside of the state, particularly some of the national political leaders who are coming in from Washington and elsewhere, trying to interfere with the process of having this debate.